Hi, Glenn. I wanted to leave you some feedback on your rough draft, your week two writing assignment. I really like what you're doing here. You have a really good sense of descriptive writing. Um, I like where you start this place, or I like the description that you use to capture the golf course. And quite honestly, this was kind of a surprise for me. Of all the places that I anticipated students writing about, a golf course has never came to mind. So this was a really interesting read for me. And I like that the fact that you kind of the way that you're writing, the way you start this thing out is very similar to the way that a camera can move in movies, right? So it's like you have this in these opening lines here, you have like this really tight focus, like the way that cameras will do close-ups, right? That we don't really know where you are, but it's like this clearly this like really peaceful moment. And I like that you kind of pull the camera back into this moment, so we know where we are. We're at this golf course, the Frank E. Peters, and then you pull it back even further to let us know that you live in Nevada, Missouri. It was just some really nice movement there. So great work. Um, you have a lot of really good details in this draft. Some personal details about yourself and your family, along with a lot of like professional details um, in your connection to this specific place. So the wonderful thing is, I get a clear sense of your connection to place. Now, the thing to think about for this assignment is having that fully realized arc, right? That narrative arc, that clear beginning, middle, and end. You have a lovely beginning here, but what we don't quite see yet is the arc, right? Like, where is this narrative going? What specific story are you telling? Remember, I said that's okay to have in this draft, but your next step is to figure out how to narrow that down. So I see several things that you could potentially go for. Do you want to tell the story of how you took this golf course over and how it became so important to you? That's a story that could be told, right? With a clear beginning, middle, and end. Do you want to tell the story of how you became a really decent golfer, as you said? That could be a story that you could tell. Um, do you want to tell this story? How you've raised your children on a golf course and how you were able to teach them these specific values that you hold so dear, and I assume your children do as well, right? So this is an example of you telling, right, instead of showing, right? Because you're just saying, uh, essentially saying, kids can learn a lot on the golf course, right? They learn these very specific values. But know that you could actually show us through a narrative, through a story of you teaching or your children learning, right, these values through narrative writing, right? So, or maybe, you taking on the job, right? And how you recognizing that this was the perfect position for you. So you have nailed that connection to place. I see that very clearly. So excellent work there. The next step is figuring out what specific story that you want to tell and getting that clear narrative arc. Okay, so that's something that I want you to work on. There's just a couple of grammatical things that I want to talk to you about. Here you open up with saying Dawn's here. And so what you're really saying in this sentence is Dawn is here. And we do our best to avoid contractions, right? So what you should have, if you left it as Dawn's here, you need to include the apostrophe, because if you don't, this reads like plural, as in there is more than one Dawn here, right? But that's not what you mean. You mean one specific Dawn. However, we avoid the use of contractions in professional writing. So this is actually what you want to say in this moment. I like this image, but what I want you to do is return to this sentence and reread it and do some editing for awkwardness. There's something missing in here, and I think you maybe have a typo, and instead of typing in, you meant I, or I am, as in, and often I am the first one. I'm not sure. There's something off here. One other thing I want you to pay attention to is verb tense, right? So if you start your sentence in a specific tense, and what I mean by verb tense is, verbs describe action, and essentially when we talk about action, we can talk about it basically in three ways: the past, the present, and the future, right? So if you take the word roll, past would be rolled, present would be roll, and future would be will roll, right? Because it hasn't happened yet. It's going to occur in the future. And when you have an issue with, well, okay, the rule with verbs is if you start in one tense, such as present, you need to stay in present tense for the entire sentence, and really the entire paper, unless you are literally talking about something that happened in the past. What you definitely don't want to do is shift verb tense mid-sentence, and that's what happens here. As I roll through the gate, I have the windows down, and when it's in peak season, when the sun comes out early, I will smell. What you want to say here is I smell, right? Does that make sense? So it's going to read weird. It's just like this little kind of blip in the reader's understanding. So if you start in one verb tense, you want to remain in that verb tense throughout the entire paper. So that's something I'd like to see you edit for too. Verb tense and contractions. You have another one here, right? So you just want to say it is in peak season, for example. Contractions are just too informal in professional writing. You want to avoid them. But the most important thing, I think, is figuring out the specific narrative that you want to tell, and I think that you'll get there. I am like delightfully surprised that you chose this as your narrative focus, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where you take it. As someone who is not a golfer, I want to know more. You like I said, you have this clear connection to this golf course in such a way that makes a complete outsider really interested in what you have to say about it, and that's good writing. All right, thanks.